The blizzard came down the mountain like a white beast, roaring across the plains and swallowing everything in its path, and if the rancher hadn't been thrown from his horse at the exact moment the wind shifted, he would have never lived to tell the tale. John McAllister, a hardened cattleman who'd always believed he understood the land better than anyone, lay half buried in snow, fighting the cold stealing into his bones. He had been tracking a missing steer, thinking he could beat the storm back to the ranch, but nature had other plans. His fingers were turning stiff, his breath shallow, the world narrowing to a dim tunnel until a shadow moved through the blinding white and a soft voice spoke in a language carried by the wind. She appeared like a spirit of winter herself, a young Apache woman wrapped not in thick blankets or heavy coats, but in a single buckskin layer, her dark hair braided tightly, snow settling harmlessly on her shoulders as though the cold dared not touch her. Her name was Tala, Wolf Girl, and she looked down at him with a calmness that made no sense in the deadly cold. Before he could speak, she knelt beside him, pressed her warm palm to his chest, and whispered, "You breathe, you live. Move now." With a strength that contradicted her slender frame, she pulled him onto his side and forced him to crawl. Every movement was agony, but her voice steady, commanding cut through his fading consciousness, driving him forward until they reached a rock ledge where snow blew over them instead of into them. Tala crouched beside him, gathering handfuls of pine boughs, packing them against his body, then pressing herself against his back. "Fire is loud," she murmured. "Fire is dangerous. The snow listens for the foolish." John had lived his whole life believing warmth meant flame. But here, in this silent glacier-white world, she taught him another truth. Warmth could be earned through breath, closeness, and stillness. As the storm howled through the night, Tala slept as though resting in her own bed, her breathing steady, unshaken, while John trembled beside her, fighting the cold and listening to her heartbeat like a drummer marking time. When he whispered, "How can you sleep in this?" she simply replied, "I learned from the wolves. The land gives everything if you respect it." By morning, when the storm finally calmed and the sun rose pale and cold over the snow-covered plains, Tala stood and brushed the frost from her dress as if it were nothing more than dust. John, exhausted but alive, could hardly believe he'd survived without a fire. She led him down the ridge with the grace of someone who grew from the earth itself, pointing out how to read wind-shaped snow, how to find pockets of trapped warmth under ledges, how to breathe steadily so cold wouldn't bite into the lungs. Every lesson stripped away the arrogance he'd carried his entire life. And when they reached the ranch, where men were already preparing a search party, Tala stopped at the fence line, knowing she belonged to the wild, not the rancher's world. John turned back to her, humbled, grateful beyond words. "I owe you my life," he said. "Then live it wiser," she answered with a small, knowing smile. "The land is not your enemy. The cold is not your killer. Ignorance is—" She began to walk away, snow crunching softly beneath her feet. "Will I see you again?" he called. She looked over her shoulder, her dark eyes reflecting the morning light. "When the winter needs to teach you again," and then she vanished into the pines as silently as she had appeared. From that day on, John told her story to every ranch hand, every traveler, every young rider who thought they could outsmart nature. And now, as you read this tale, remember that wisdom doesn't always come from where you expect it, can arrive in the form of a quiet girl who sleeps in the snow without fear and teaches a hardened man how to survive. If you felt the power of this story, if you want more tales of courage, survival, kindness, and unexpected heroes, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because your support helps bring these unforgettable stories to life. Stories that warm the heart even in the coldest storms. *.